And nobody was prepared. Oh, everybody thought they were. People had spent a decade and a half, maybe 2 decades, dotting every I and crossing every T. They had pantries full of canned goods, and they had basements full of all sorts of survivalist stuff. But when the end really came and they looked out their window, they were shocked at what they saw. How many people out there in my audience have ever seen one of these TV shows or news reports where the police roll up in force on some house and they drag some guy out, and he has done all of these horrible, heinous things, and the media is there and they interview the neighbor, and the neighbor says, boy, I knew that person for 10, 12 years. They were quiet and polite, and you would have never thought. It's almost cliche how often that happens. Now, imagine that times the entire East Coast. For those of you who haven't heard, there's massive solar storms heading for the East Coast that could result in widespread outages of all kinds, GPS, and who knows what else. Now, the real story is a lot of people don't know who they're living around. They don't know who they're living next to, primarily because of the internet. See, the internet was supposed to bring everybody together, but what the internet does is that it allows you to socialize inside your own home and not even know who's living next door. Now, real quick, this is battlefield of the mind stuff. This is stuff that people don't really think about. You have to wonder, even 2 or 3 houses down, do you really know that person? If you'd like to join us at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, where it's only $1 US per month, very little risk, would love to have you over there. Would make a huge difference in my life. And what we talk about over there are things that most people don't think about, because a lot of people are caught up in their emotions day to day, and they aren't really thinking about the true ramifications of what would happen 3 days in, 5 days in, 10 days in to a major power outage. I used to use this image all the time, talking about end of the world stuff, and people kind of got a little sick of the image, but here we are, less than 24 hours away from a major CME impact that they're already saying is going to shut things off. Now, here's the reality. Here's the reality on this. There was a commercial put out by Apple recently trying to promote their new iPad being so unbelievably thin. And the commercial that they used showed a giant crusher. And it showed all of the things underneath it that you can do with your iPad. Now, Apple came out and apologized for this after the internet ripped it apart. Why did the internet rip it apart? Well, because it showed the destruction of things that encompass the human experience. Playing the guitar, playing the piano, painting, sculpting, music. You see, you can put all of that, you can, in a tiny little electronic device or some mimic of it. But what happens when the power goes out or the connectivity goes out? See, that these two stories are right next to each other, I think is hilarious that nobody has put this together. The people at Apple believe the entire world exists on the internet, and it doesn't exist outside of it. That's what shows you they're operating from emotions, not thought. Now, some might say, well, gosh, Florida Maquis, if it was 6 or 7 or 10 days, there would be food riots. I don't think there'd be food riots. I think there would be riots, but I don't think it'd have anything to do with food. I think it would have to do with entertainment. Now, stick with me here. I found this, actually it's from Lisa Haven. She posted this some time ago. No such thing as government funded. It's all taxpayer funded. Okay? That means all the money that government does things with is our money. Now, 2023 farm subsidies expected to remain at excessively high levels. See, a lot of people don't realize that when they go to the grocery store and they see all of those unaffordable things, they would be even more unaffordable if the government hadn't taken your tax money already and paid part of the bill. A lot of people are like, well, gosh, that seems crazy. That sounds like socialism. Well, it is. It's baked in. That's why people think that they go to the store and they buy things that are being priced on the free market. They're not. Case in point, Aldi cutting prices on hundreds of items to fight stubborn inflation. 250 things. Now, when you read the story, they're cutting prices and they're taking a bit of a hit to their profit, but they're still making tons of money. Even though consumers haven't felt this bad about the economy since November, the profits of grocery stores are absolutely through the roof. Now, here's my question. In an event like this, would it be more moral for someone to engage in the free market, capitalist world that we live in, and go out there and earn money the way that pays the best so that they don't have to rely on any government assistance ever? Meaning if the choice is there's a government program I could use to feed my family, or I could go do this other thing that's somewhat, in some circles, questionably moral. I've heard so many people say socialism is the worst thing ever. Compared to what? Compared to what? How many of you seen this image before? All the folks 50 and 75 and 80 years ago that did everything allegedly morally correct, and they got married, and they stayed faithful to each other, and they just popped out kid after kid after kid after kid after kid to the point where they lived in poverty, where they were having to buy 8, 10, 12 pairs of shoes every year or every other year. Is that moral? And should government intervene? Say, okay, after 3 kids, you can't have any. Sounds like China, doesn't it? And this is my favorite. High school teachers and nurses and all sorts of quitting their jobs and turning to OnlyFans to pay their student loan debt. But yet we also hear the government is forgiving loan debt. And saying, okay, you know what? We're done. You've made your payments X amount of time. It's causing too much of a hiccup in the economy. We're going to forgive the rest of your debt. And there's people on the right that are losing their mind about that. Well, which is more moral? The government forgiving the debt or the debt being paid by other means? You see, this is the world we live in now, where people's minds are in 2 different places and they don't even realize it. There's people on the brink of bankruptcy, losing homes, losing cars, losing jobs. The money just isn't making it to the end of the month. And the only option is doing things out there in the free market that pay better. Now, that's why I started here. See, the biggest thing that's going to be missed on the internet is going to be the adult stuff. Because that's what drives the internet. That's what's going to be missed. And if there are riots, that's what it's going to be about. Because if people can't take their smartphone out and live stream their protest to bump up their numbers on their social media, a lot of them aren't going to be bothered. As long as they've got whatever they need to eat. The biggest problem is they're going to be bored. And it won't be right away. It won't be day 2, day 3, day 4. But bread and circuses is going to be a big deal. And it's going to rear its ugly head, mark my words. And that's what's going to surprise a lot of people. Because they won't be able to say to themselves, government needs to do something to fix this, because it'll make them sound like they're socialists. Even though we know it's our money. Even though we know it's our money that they have to spend to do all this stuff, there are people out there saying government shouldn't give us back our money because that makes us socialist. What people should do is go engage in the free market economy. Okay. How does Aldi cutting prices, which most people would laud and say is a great idea, how is that in alignment with free market principles? They didn't have to. They didn't have to. And when you look at their 250 item list, there's really only one thing that they slashed the price enough that it would probably make you, motivated enough to go get it. And that was on some Angus steaks. Where are they? USDA Choice Black Angus Sirloin Steak. They've dropped from $8.49 a pound to $6.99. Okay, $1.50 a pound. I've seen sales better than that at Publix, honestly. But everything is 20 cents here, 10 cents here, 15 cents here. But it's a big marketing thing for them because they did this last year. Even though most Americans don't realize the prices that you see at the grocery store would be far higher without farm subsidies, without them already having written the check to the farmers to either grow more of something or grow less of something or not grow something at all in order to cause a shortage to drive the price up. And that's what they do. It isn't going to be about food. It isn't going to be about food. It's going to be about the internet. And here's my prediction on this. If things would go out for a long period of time and they were able to stand it back up and they were only standing up basic services, basic internet services like email, but there was no links to any, we'll just call them adult entertainment sites. Watch the riots. Globally, watch the riots. People will do anything. Anything. Because if they're not entertained by that, they'll find another way to entertain themselves, and it'll be in the streets. Mark my words. That's why I said nobody's prepared. Because living anywhere around you, you may or you may not know. How many of you, and I'm just going to ask the ladies out there specifically, how many of you thought you knew a guy and you'd been around him for a while, maybe through work or through a friend, and then you decided to, okay, we'll go out to dinner. And after a date, 2 dates, 3 dates, all of a sudden, this guy is something completely different. And you wonder, how in the world did I not see this? Well, imagine that times 10 million, 20 million, 50 million. I'll leave it there. God bless y'all. Thank you so much for your patience. Very much appreciate it. If you could join us over at Patreon, make a huge, huge difference in my life. Only $1. $1 a month. Fully refundable. First 90 days. No questions asked. Love to have you. Thank you so much. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. And we'll see you guys next time.